Classification research versus comparative research. Classification research is concerned with describing the features of a particular individual or group, whereas comparative research is a research methodology in the social sciences exemplified in cross-cultural or comparative studies. The purpose of classification research is to identify and classify individual elements of a group into larger groups or subgroups, whereas the purpose of comparative research is to make comparisons across different countries or cultures. Classification research helps in making detailed descriptions regarding characteristics of particular individual or group, whereas comparative research helps in comparing and contrasting different societies, cultures, or groups to identify similarities and differences. Classification research identifies the traits of any particular individual or group, whereas comparative research identifies similarities and differences between two individuals, subjects, or groups. Example of classification research in which researchers study an animal species, placing them in defined categories based on shared characteristics, such as body segmentation, type of habitat, reproductive methods, diet, etc. Whereas, example of classification research in which a business owner reviews new hire training documentation and discovers that new employees receive much of same information at orientation and in their initial departmental training. The owner incorporates materials into one session to allow more time for department-specific training. Cross-sectional research versus longitudinal research. Cross-sectional research or synchronous research studies a group or subgroup at one point in time. Participants are generally chosen based on specific shared features, such as age, gender, or income, and researchers examine the similarities and differences within and between groups. The group is often used as a representation of a larger population, whereas longitudinal research focuses on how certain measurements change over time without manipulating any determining variables. Longitudinal research requires a researcher to revisit participants of the study at proper intervals. The purpose of cross-sectional research is to provide information on one population for one or more, whereas the purpose of longitudinal research is to assess not just what the data reveal at a fixed point in time, but to understand how and why things change over time. Synonym of cross-sectional research is cross-sectional study, whereas synonym of longitudinal research is longitudinal study. Cross-sectional research is conducted with different samples, whereas longitudinal study is conducted with same sample over the years. Cross-sectional research is type of descriptive research or observational research, whereas longitudinal research is type of correlational research. Cross-sectional research can be conducted through survey, interviews, and medical records, whereas longitudinal research can be conducted through cohort studies, panel studies, and trend study. Cross-sectional research main focus is not on cause and effect relationship between variables, whereas longitudinal research main focus is on cause and effect relationship between variables. One point in time is used in cross-sectional research, whereas several points in time are used in longitudinal research. There is different sample in cross-sectional research, whereas there is same sample in longitudinal research. Snapshot of a given point in time change at social level in cross-sectional research, whereas change at individual level in longitudinal research. Cross-sectional research is not expensive and do not take lot of time, whereas longitudinal research is expensive and take lot of time. British Social Attitude Survey and Labour Force Survey are example of cross-sectional research, whereas British Birth Cohort Studies and Understanding Society are example of longitudinal research. In cross-sectional research, a company researches the sales techniques of its top 10% of salespeople and compares them to those of its bottom 10%. This gives the company insights into the most successful and least successful sales methods. Whereas, in longitudinal research, a researcher examines if and how employee satisfaction changes in the same employees after 1 year, 3 years and 5 years with the same company. In short, cross-sectional research is type of observational research that involves collecting data from many different individuals at a specific point of time. Whereas, longitudinal research involves repeatedly examining the same subjects to detect changes that may occur over a period of time.